Welcome back to IPBC 2014 in Shanghai this year, where one of the companies considered global by Western standards actually considered local when you ask people in China. That company is Philips. The electronics giant has been in this part of the world since 1920, starting its first joint venture in 1985, very much entrenched in the local market. We're joined now by the person who manages a team of 60 in the Intellectual Property and Strategy Office, Laure Van Oudheusden. Thanks so much for coming in today. What is your take on the way that IP and IP protection is developing in China?
Okay, in China it's developing very fast. You see that since they started to have a IP law, development has been much faster than in any other country or region. So that's very interesting for me to be here, especially these years, because you see so much development. Only this year and last year, we've seen a lot of new laws or new proposals for new laws in all the different IP flavors, like trademark, patents, standards. All regulations are developing very fast. And to be honest, it's developing in the right direction. Sometimes a little bit slower than we would like to see it, but in the right direction. So it gives us a very nice feeling about being here and about the future of IP in China.
Which areas particularly would you like to see faster action in?
All the areas, trademark and patents especially, but also trade secrets. We are expecting a little bit more support to be able to properly protect our trade secrets in China. And there are lots of discussions, but so far no real clear advancement. So yeah, that's one of the elements where we would expect a faster development.
What's at the core of all of these problems? Is it a cultural lack of understanding, shall we say, or lack of appreciation for IP, or is it the law, is it enforcement?
I like this question very much because I think after 2 years I've now sensed a little bit more what is the reason for that. You can name culture, you can think about the law, but actually if you look at the law, how it is now, it's not that bad. I mean, it looks very much similar to all the other laws we have in other countries, of course with certain differences, especially looking at the level of damages, so it's still different. But I think what the core of this, and actually a few weeks from now, we were with a delegation of intellectual property owners visiting all the government officials in Beijing. And for example, in a meeting with Supreme Court, I was very amazed and impressed by the head of the Supreme Court telling us, when we were telling him, congratulating him for all the nice developments in China, actually he had something very interesting to say. He said, actually we are slow. And the reason why we are slow is because the law needs to support the economy. So we need to follow the economy, and for that reason we cannot set ourselves too ambitious targets. So that helped me really understand that the issue is not that they don't understand. I think they understand the whole thing very well, and many of the IP specialists in the government agencies or in the field know what needs to be done. They know it very well, but for some reasons, and that's very understandable, the economy is in certain stage, so the law has to advance together with the economy. Otherwise it will not work.
But doesn't that suggest that there is a certain amount of excusing of infringement in the name of economic growth? I mean, if you take that, then you could say, well, any product coming in from the West is fair game because it'll help the Chinese economy develop.
It means that they have to take into account a number of factors because they cannot, they have to support the economy, so they have to advance at a certain pace. But if you compare where they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago and where they are now, I think they did pretty well, but there are still a number of items where we need to continue pushing, and they are welcoming advices and discussions with foreign companies, but also with foreign institutions. For example, SIPO works very closely with the European Patent Office, with the US Patent Office. They are constantly trying to understand how things are done elsewhere, and they are trying to find the right things that they can implement now and the things that they need to wait for maybe a little bit to implement later. So is it an excuse or not? Of course, when you are facing a problem, when you have copycats in the market, yeah, you want to push harder, and you may think, yeah, they are not doing a good job. But yeah, this is the best I think they can do, at least, yeah, for now. And but it means that we need to continue pushing. If we stop pushing, probably they will think it's good enough, and it's not good enough. So we need to constantly push.
Because I suppose the flip side to this is that your strong competitors in the verticals of household appliances, for example, thinking of Haier and other, I suppose, much better brand names, better known brand names now, wouldn't have gotten to their position if it hadn't been for a fairly relaxed regulatory environment in the past.
Well, not necessarily, because actually if you see what happens between Chinese companies themselves, they are fighting for IP. They are building huge IP portfolios, and they are suing themselves. I think it was also said in this conference that if you look at the number of lawsuits in China, more than 95% of the lawsuits are between Chinese local companies.
As opposed to Western companies in China.
So Western companies are involved in only 3 to 5% of the lawsuits in IP. So that shows that actually there is a real need for more IP and for a better patent and trademark system, a better IP system in China, and it will be pushed not only by foreign companies but also by the local companies, and also the government. The government is really clearly pushing for more IP, so it has to come with a better enforcement system. Otherwise, you start building portfolios that cost a lot of money, and you don't have return on investment.
Yes. Is the enforcement issue reflected in the roles that your 60 or so staff have?
Yes, actually, out of the 60 people I have in my team, we have about 6 people who are really deeply involved in what we call brand protection. So they are in the market, looking at what's out there and fighting for pushing out all the copycat makers. So we work with the customs, and the customs is really doing a very good job trying to push those products and size those products that are copying Philips products, for example. We work also with the police, and we have lots of successes seeing our products sized in the market, and we win a lot of lawsuits in trademark. When we have a good position in the market, when we have a really clear product with brand, with design, and with patents, then we can be successful. Mm-hmm. So actually the brand protection team is really doing a very good job.
Yes, but that's only 5. What do the other 55 do?
So that was for copycat fighting, and the others are more involved in creating the portfolio, so trademark, design, patents, so generating the portfolio. Also working with our businesses, being involved in all our transactions, so contract negotiations, contract drafting. We are involved in all M&A deals, joint licensing or joint development deals. We're also involved in standardization activities, where we try to push our patents in the standard and also try to make a market for our products by bringing technology into the standard. And we're also, of course, involved in licensing or in extracting value out of our portfolio through licensing and also through exclusivity. So actually making sure that our products are not copied, that our patents are not copied in...
How much innovation actually is there in China, which otherwise has a reputation of just manufacturing products that are designed elsewhere?
So how do you measure innovation? That's...
Perhaps by the number of patents, perhaps by the adoption of Chinese-designed products outside of China.
So maybe first of all I can explain that we do have R&D facilities in China, and actually it's growing, and in Shanghai we have the second largest R&D facility of the whole Philips. In total in China we have 2,100 dedicated R&D staff working in innovation, trying to innovate, find new products, and filed patents for these new products. In terms of IP, the IP coming from this local innovation is of course much smaller if you compare with the whole the number of patents that we file every year globally, which is about 1,400. From China, I would say that right now it would be about less than 300 new inventions. But actually, taking into account that we started about 15 years ago, compared with in Europe, where we had our first patent department like 100 years ago, and same for research. We started research 100 years ago in Europe, and the research department in China started also like 15 years ago. So yeah, it's you have to take that into proportions.
Right.
But there is really willingness from Philips to do R&D in China, to innovate for the local market. And that's, I think, our strength, because if you compare with other companies who are very reluctant to do any innovation locally for whatever reason they may have. Some
Scalability, perhaps?
Scalability?
Perhaps.
Could be.
Is that the reason for?
But also other reasons like trade secret issues, etc. I think we are quite bold in really investing in R&D in China. To give you a number, again, we invest every year 110 million euro in R&D in China from Philips. So it's quite significant, and we do believe that it makes sense to have local innovation for the local market.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, you've been active in China since 1920. Now, to what extent are you seen as that local company? To what extent do you have I suppose, a greater tie to the local consumer because you've been here for such a long time?
Yes, because we are here for a long time, and also because we have good teams, and we also employ local people who really understand the market. So we want to have local products, and we want to really be a local brand. And that's also one of our successes. Philips is considered by super brands as one of the top brands in China for the fourth consecutive year. So we're very proud of that, being considered by locals as almost a Chinese brand with higher quality.
Finally then, before we let you go back to the conference, you can hear the bell calling people back to the sessions. What is your priority for the next 2 years, having now been in this job for just over 2 years?
Okay. That's a good question, and that's very difficult to answer now, because maybe you have heard about the announcement of Philips will split into 2 independent companies. So it's very difficult now to tell you what's the priority for the next 2 years. But actually, our priority in China will still be, I'm sure, to grow the team, to increase the level of expertise, because, as I mentioned to you, in China we do exactly the same things as we do outside of China, in Europe and in the US. We are involved in the whole end-to-end value chain, from creation of a portfolio till licensing. But there are areas where we need to improve, and especially get more revenues, for example, out of licensing. That would be very nice. That would be a nice target for me, to make sure that we collect more revenues through licensing from the Chinese market.
Do you have a target in mind?
Not yet, but I will figure that out.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time, and once again, we'll let you get back to the panel discussions.
Thank you very much.
Laure Van Oudheusden, who's with the Intellectual Property and Standards Office here in China. And I'm Mark Laudy at IPBC Asia 2014.